At my birthday party, I had an accidental one-night stand with Ethan, the boy next door I'd chased for 10 years. When I woke up, he was already getting dressed, looking down at me with cold disgust. This is a really cheap trick, Chloe. I looked at the glass of non-alcoholic juice on the nightstand. I didn't explain. I didn't argue. I just ignored the aching soreness in my body, went straight home, and completely cut off contact with him for 3 whole months. The next time I heard from him, his mother had dragged him to my house to ask for a favor. Our stubborn boy is finally ready to settle down. They're planning the engagement. Chloe, you majored in interior design, right? Can you help them renovate their new house? I froze in the kitchen, spilling the hot soup all over my hand. My mom happily patted my arm. Wait, did you two actually make it work? I always said my girl might not be the smartest, but she's definitely thick-skinned. You actually snatched Ethan. The atmosphere instantly turned awkward. Ethan's face went pitch black. Chloe, is it fun to spread rumors? Even if you lie and say we're having a baby, I will still never marry you. Both of our mothers froze. Mrs. Davis immediately apologized. What nonsense are you talking about? Chloe is a good, respectable girl. Stop acting like a jerk. She turned around and slapped Ethan's arm repeatedly. I took the opportunity to speak up. It's fine, Mrs. Davis. But I really can't help with the house. I looked down and gently touched my belly. I actually am pregnant. Exactly 3 months. I smiled and added. But don't worry, all 3 of you. The baby isn't Ethan's. That one sentence felt like a sudden clap of thunder. Ethan kicked the chair next to him in a rage, gritting his teeth. Is it appropriate for you to make this kind of joke right now? Under my mom's shocked gaze, I brought out a bowl of chicken soup and sat down at the dining table. Looking at his furious face, I covered my lower abdomen, completely calm. I'm not joking. I am pregnant. And it really isn't yours. Then I forced a polite, apologetic smile. I just found out a few days ago and haven't had the chance to tell everyone. I'm sorry, Mrs. Davis. You'll have to find someone else to design the house. I stirred my soup and said to my mom, I asked you to make chicken soup today because the doctor said the baby needs more nutrients. The air in the room froze. My mom's eyes welled with tears, and she couldn't say a word. Sensing that things were going south, Mrs. Davis awkwardly laughed and dragged Ethan out of the house. Before he left, Ethan gave me a dark, unreadable look and spat out one last line. Even if it's true, I'll never take responsibility for it. The moment they left, my mom slammed her hand on the table. I know you've loved Ethan for 10 years. But even if you're angry that he's getting engaged, you can't ruin your own reputation like this. You haven't even had a boyfriend. Where would a baby come from? I pulled the ultrasound report from my pocket. The words pregnancy, 3 months completely silenced her. She closed her eyes in defeat, then suddenly grabbed my wrist as if realizing something. I heard what he just said. He said even if it's true, he won't take responsibility. Did something happen between you two? Is this child his? I took a sip of the soup and said quietly, Mom, how many times do I have to say it? The baby really isn't Ethan's. My mom's hands shook with anger. Then tell me who the father is. I'm not against you dating. You're almost 30, and you always rejected the guys I set you up with. I thought you were set on Ethan forever. But you. She looked around and lowered her voice. But you went and got yourself pregnant without a husband. A wave of nausea hit my throat. I stood up and poured the soup down the drain. As she kept lecturing, I said helplessly, I'll tell you more when the pregnancy is stable. He knows about the baby, and he's willing to take responsibility. My mom followed me, her face full of frustration. Take responsibility? How? Right now he says he will, but once you actually give birth, he'll run away. My mind drifted, thinking of how excited a certain someone had been when he found out. An involuntary smile touched my lips. He would take responsibility. The moment he found out I was pregnant, he immediately transferred $1 million to my account and bought all the baby supplies himself. At the very least, he was 1,000 times more responsible than Ethan. Mom, don't worry. Your daughter isn't stupid. I'm going to work now. I packed my things and went down to the garage. When I reached my car, I saw Ethan's car blocking my driveway completely. I instinctively reached into my bag to grab his spare key to move it. But after rummaging for a bit, I remembered he had taken his keys back the day we started our Cold War. Hesitantly, I pulled out my phone and scrolled to the bottom of my chat list to find his name. Can you move your car? I need to go to work. The next second, a red exclamation mark flashed on my screen. He had blocked me. I tapped on his Instagram profile. His profile banner, which had been a sports theme for years, had been replaced by a photo of 2 hands locked together, an official relationship announcement. I let out a bitter laugh and put my phone away. Right. He took his keys back, so blocking me was only natural. As I turned to leave, I tripped on something on the ground and almost fell. My heart leaped into my throat. I grabbed the side mirror of his car to steady myself. Scattered all over the concrete were things I had left in his car over the years. There was my winter coat, which I had given him because I was worried he'd catch a cold after drinking. There was a silver cross necklace I had climbed thousands of steps at a cathedral to get for him, just to keep him safe, and a meticulously packed first aid kit, in case he got sick. The rest was just random junk, lipsticks and fake eyelashes I'd accidentally dropped during our hangouts. If the person didn't matter to him, then her things were just trash to be thrown away. Through the passenger window, I saw the front seat had been decorated beautifully. There was a pink cushion, a cute plushie tied to the headrest, and a toy steering wheel on the dashboard. In the past, whenever I tried to put a small keychain in his car, he would throw it out. "If you put something so girly in here, people will think I have a girlfriend," he used to say. My eyes burned. So this was the special treatment saved only for an official girlfriend. I bent down, threw all my old belongings into the trash can, and called an Uber. As soon as I sat down, my high school bestie Lily called me, screaming through the phone, "Chloe, that jerk Ethan is getting engaged." Hearing the news again, I was much calmer. "Yeah, I just found out." "Did you see his Instagram?" We were all terrified. "He never posts anything, and today he uploaded 5 different posts. We thought the bride was you, but it turns out." I didn't want to hear it, so I cut her off. "Want to hear something even more shocking?" Lily asked instantly. "What?" A gentle smile crept onto my face. "I'm pregnant. You're going to be a godmother." "What?" "I'm not lying. Exactly 3 months." I sent her a picture of the ultrasound. She sounded like she was about to cry with excitement. "I thought you were going to be stuck on Ethan for the rest of your life. I was literally just about to tell you to stop running into that brick wall. But look at you. You got pregnant. That's amazing. Quick, tell me, who's the dad?" I kept it a mystery. "In a few days, when he's done with his business trip, you'll be the first person to meet him." She happily agreed, and we hung up after chatting about baby prep. Right after I sat down at my desk, Lily posted on her Snapchat, "Thank God. My bestie Chloe is pregnant. I'm going to be a godmother." I was about to message her to tell her to keep it on the down low, but the next second, Ethan, who had been completely MIA, commented, "Are you playing along with her little drama now?" Lily clapped back instantly. "People without kids shouldn't interfere with those of us who do. Are you blind? Can't you see the hospital's official stamp on the report?" The frustration that had been building up in my chest was mostly cleared by Lily's reply. I hummed a little tune and spent a busy afternoon working. Later, I took a picture of the soothing flowers a certain someone had sent to my office and posted it on my Snapchat story. It feels so good to have someone caring for me. Out of nowhere, Ethan left a comment. "Is lying to yourself that comforting? Just don't go around telling people I sent those to you." In his eyes, I was that worthless. I didn't reply. While waiting for my ride after work, a familiar car pulled up right in front of me. A frustrated Ethan rolled down the window. "Get in." I stood still. I called an Uber. "I'm not asking. Get in." Sighing, I canceled my ride. I instinctively walked to the passenger side, but after he glared at me, I quietly got into the back seat. Ethan drove incredibly fast. The wind cut through the open window like a knife. While waiting at a red light, he habitually pulled out a cigarette, but after glancing at my flat stomach through the rearview mirror, he put it away. "You can't keep this baby. I can compensate you for what happened that night, but I won't be responsible for a child's future." I gently stroked my belly, my heart aching. "You make it sound like I forced myself on you that night. Let me say it again. I don't need you to take responsibility, and the baby isn't yours." Ethan swore under his breath and slammed his hand on the steering wheel, honking the horn loudly. "You're still acting at a time like this? I don't think you have enough charm to make any other guy look at you." He looked at me through the rearview mirror, his eyes filled with endless mockery. My pale, tired face was reflected in the window. I didn't care to argue with him. Since we were kids, Ethan was always the golden boy. He was tall, handsome, studious, and great at sports. The girls chasing him could line up from our doorsteps to the school gates. Even my breakfasts were supplied by his fangirls. Because I looked so average, they collectively agreed that I wasn't a threat. When I first started passing their love letters to him, Ethan was shocked. "Hey, why are you giving me these? I don't like you, don't do this." Wearing my thick glasses, I told him honestly, "I didn't write them. Someone else asked me to give them to you." "Good." He let out a long sigh of relief. "Let me make this clear. Don't get any ideas about me. To me, you're basically genderless." I felt a pang of sadness, but I still spent the next 3 years quietly following behind him. It wasn't until high school, when we were in the same class, that things changed. After his basketball games, he would walk a long way just to ask for my water bottle. "Give me a sip. I'm dying of thirst." The setting sun hit his sweaty face, making him look incredibly bright. For the first time, my ears flushed red, and I refused. "Why not? Don't be so stingy to your bro." He unreasonable snatched it away and gulped it down. When I got the bottle back, I hid in a corner where no one was looking and took a sip from where his lips had touched. That was the moment I realized I liked him. But he didn't like me. I started caring about my appearance, tried taking off my glasses, and clumsily put on makeup that made me look like a clown. He mocked me mercilessly. So ugly. Later, I intentionally threw away over 50 points on my SATs, just to make sure I went to college in the same city as him. I played games of truth or dare just to confess to him under the guise of a joke. I threw drunken tantrums and dropped hints constantly. But all I got in return was his disdain and malicious teasing from our mutual friends. The final straw was at my birthday party 3 months ago. I had gone out to buy cold medicine for him. And when I returned to the private room, I heard his friends making bets through the door. Ethan, do you think Chloe is going to find another chance to confess to you tonight? How many times has it been? At least 10,000 times, right? Ethan's lips curved into a slight smirk. No matter how many times she hints at it, I'll just play dumb. After all, she's great for everything, except being a girlfriend. My hand froze in midair. I completely lost the courage to push the door open. That was the first time I didn't try to drop clumsy hints. In fact, after the party ended, he looked uncomfortable, grabbed my arm, and asked if I had anything to say to him. I shook my head. He then dragged me to a hotel, almost out of spite, saying he wanted to clear things up. And after that he woke up, got dressed in disgust, and cut me off. A sudden violent screech of brakes pulled me back to reality. The car had stopped in the underground garage of his apartment building. I thought about it and decided to tell him the truth about that night. Ethan, that night, we didn't actually. Before I could finish the words, do anything, he pushed the door open and ran off without looking back. Victoria, don't be scared. I'll be right there. Wait for me. He left so decisively, leaving me locked in the back seat, helplessly banging on the window for help. Only then did I realize who Victoria was. She was the elegant senior who was the only girl to ever reject him. I waited and waited until midnight, knowing he wouldn't come back. Now that his dream girl was back, how could he let me ruin his mood? I wanted to call Lily for help. But I was afraid Ethan would think I was making a big deal out of nothing and make his dream girl misunderstand. In the end, from the lack of oxygen in the car, I fainted. When I woke up again, the white walls and the smell of disinfectant surrounded me. The room was noisy. Mrs. Davis was screaming at Ethan. Do you even have a heart? You knew Chloe was pregnant, and you left her locked in the car all night? If anything happens to the baby, you're dead to me. My mom was angry too, but she tried to keep the peace. All right. She's fine now. The baby is still small. I coughed twice, cutting them off. My mom immediately rushed to my bedside, her eyes full of worry. Chloe, are you feeling better? The doctor said you're weak. It was hard to save the baby, so don't put yourself in danger anymore, okay? Every word she said was a jab at Ethan's carelessness. Mrs. Davis looked extremely embarrassed, but she forced a smile. Yes, Chloe, you need to take care of your body. I won't let this brat bother you anymore. It sounded a bit like I was the one clinging to her son. I weakly turned my head away, but Ethan cut his mother off. I was the one who went looking for Chloe. Stop being passive-aggressive. He awkwardly stepped closer and held a bowl of soup to my lips. I pulled away, refusing to take a single sip. He got annoyed and slammed the bowl onto the table. If you don't drink it, don't blame me if something happens to the kid. I was almost amused by his words. He had been insisting the child had nothing to do with him. So what was this act supposed to be now? Mrs. Davis's expression hardened behind him, and she looked at me with a hint of displeasure. I said quietly, the baby has a father. You don't need to worry about it. Ethan's face darkened by several shades. You're in your first trimester, so I won't argue with you. I bought all the baby supplies based on online guides. Take care of yourself. I looked at the corner of the room, which was piled high with baby clothes, strollers, and toys. Ethan was still misunderstanding. Since everyone was here, it was the perfect time to explain everything clearly, so a certain someone wouldn't get jealous. But before I could speak, a slender, beautiful figure walked into the room. The door to the VIP ward clicked open, and Victoria stepped inside. She was dressed impeccably in an ivory silk dress, her long hair cascading over her shoulders, holding a small box of imported macarons. The delicate scent of white tea perfume instantly filled the room, clashing sharply with the hospital's sterile smell of disinfectant. Ethan, darling, Victoria's voice was as soft as velvet, dripping with gentle concern. I heard your friend wasn't feeling well, so I had my driver bring over some sweets. She paused, her eyes sweeping over the room, taking in Mrs. Davis, my mother, the pile of cheap baby supplies in the corner, and finally me lying pale against the white hospital pillows. Ethan's posture shifted instantly. The annoyance on his face vanished, replaced by a tense, protective alertness. He quickly took a step toward Victoria, placing himself slightly in front of her, as if protecting his fragile trophy from a mudslide. Victoria, Ethan said, his voice softening by several degrees. Why did you come up? I told you to wait in the car. The air in here isn't good for you. Victoria smiled sweetly, looping her arm naturally through Ethan's. I was worried about you, silly. You ran off so fast in the garage last night. I thought something terrible had happened. She looked over at me, her eyes flashing with a faint, victorious glint that only another woman could catch. You must be Chloe. Ethan has mentioned you before. He said you two grew up together like brother and sister. Brother and sister. I let out a low, breathless laugh that ended in a soft cough. 10 years of chasing him. 10 years of my youth spent carrying his water bottles, enduring his friends' cruel bets, and waiting outside his dorm room in the freezing rain, reduced to brother and sister. My mother's face went crimson with humiliation. She took a sharp step forward, her voice trembling. Brother and sister? My daughter spent 10 years. Mom, stop. I cut her off quietly, my voice flat and devoid of any emotion. There's no need. I looked at Victoria, then at Ethan, whose hand was firmly resting over Victoria's waist. Miss Vance, I said evenly, staring straight into Victoria's eyes. Congratulations on your engagement to Ethan. But please take your fiancé and leave. I need to rest. Victoria's smile faltered slightly at my total lack of reaction. She had clearly expected tears, an angry outburst, or a desperate plea. Instead, I treated her like a passing breeze. Ethan, however, looked visibly agitated by my calm. His grip on Victoria's waist tightened, his jaw clenching. Chloe, don't play the victim in front of Victoria, Ethan sneered, his voice laced with defensive arrogance. Victoria came out of kindness. You locked yourself in my car, fainted on purpose to get my attention, and now you're acting like I owe you something? I've already bought the baby stuff. What more do you want? Mrs. Davis winced, pulling Ethan's arm. Ethan, watch your mouth. She almost lost the baby. Mom. She fainted because she didn't open the window. Ethan snapped, turning his glare back to me. She did it on purpose. She knew I was going to meet Victoria, so she staged the whole thing to make me look like a villain. Before my mother could explode, a low, authoritative voice echoed from the doorway. Who said she needs to stage anything to make you look like a villain, Mr. Davis? The entire room went dead quiet. Standing in the doorway was a man who looked like he had stepped straight off the cover of an international business magazine. He wore a bespoke dark charcoal three-piece suit, his broad shoulders filling the tailored wool effortlessly. His dark hair was styled back, revealing sharp, striking features, a high nose bridge, and eyes as deep and cold as a winter ocean. In his right hand, he carried a massive bouquet of rare, long-stemmed Ecuadorian white roses. In his left, a sleek leather briefcase. Behind him stood 4 men in sharp black suits, along with the hospital's chief of medicine, who was practically bowing as he gestured into the room. Mr. Vance, the chief of medicine stammered nervously. We've prepared the presidential suite on the top floor as you requested. My heart did a strange, fluttery flip in my chest. Julian Vance, the sole heir to the Vance International conglomerate, the most powerful corporate empire in the state, and the youngest senior partner at the top architectural firm in the country. He was also my university senior, the man who had personally mentored my thesis project 3 years ago, and the man who had transferred $1 million into my bank account 48 hours after I tested positive. The moment Victoria saw him, her face drained of all color. See, cousin Julian? Ethan froze, his eyes widening in shock. Cousin. Julian didn't give Victoria or Ethan a single glance. He walked straight past them, the heavy thud of his leather shoes echoing against the linoleum tiles. He stopped beside my hospital bed. The cold, intimidating aura surrounding him vanished in an instant. He set the white roses on the nightstand, sat gently on the edge of my bed, and reached out to tuck a stray lock of hair behind my ear. His long, warm fingers gently brushed against my pale cheek. I came straight from the airport, Julian murmured, his deep voice carrying a velvet richness that made my ears burn. Are you feeling sick? Does your head still hurt? I looked at him, feeling a sudden, overwhelming wave of warmth in my chest. I'm fine. You didn't have to cut your summit short. My wife and my child are in the hospital, Julian said softly, his thumb lightly tracing my lower lip, his gaze dropping to my flat stomach with profound tenderness. How could I stay in London? Wife, child. The words landed in the room like an atomic bomb. Mrs. Davis gasped, clutching her chest. My mother stood paralyzed, her mouth wide open. Ethan's face went from pale to ghost white, then to an ugly, mottled red. Wife, what the hell are you talking about? Who are you? Julian turned his head slowly. The gentle warmth in his eyes instantly turned into ice-cold steel as he looked at Ethan. Julian Vance, he said calmly, standing up to his full height of 6'2", completely towering over Ethan. Chloe's fiancé, and the father of her child. Ethan let out a harsh, hysterical laugh, pointing an accusing finger at Julian. Fiancé. Father. Are you insane? Ethan roared, his voice cracking with desperation. Chloe has been chasing me for 10 years. She threw away 50 points on her SATs just to go to the same college as me. She spent 3 months begging me to touch her. Where the hell did you come from? Julian didn't flinch. He casually pulled a fountain pen from his breast pocket and tapped his briefcase. His personal assistant immediately stepped forward, opening the leather case and pulling out a stack of stamped documents. 3 months ago, on May 14th, Julian said, his voice smooth, articulate, and terrifyingly calm. Chloe was at the Starlight Hotel celebrating her birthday. You, Mr. Davis, were in room 802, boasting to your friends about how you would never let a girl like Chloe be your girlfriend. Ethan's jaw snapped shut. Panic flickered across his eyes. At 11:30 p.m., you left the hotel with Miss Victoria Vance, Julian continued, tapping a paper. Chloe left the room alone, weeping. She ran into me in the lobby. Julian walked over, standing directly in front of Ethan, his presence crushing Ethan's arrogant posture like an eggshell. I have loved Chloe for 6 years, Julian whispered, every word crisp and lethal. Ever since she sat in my university design studio, working until midnight to perfect her sketches. That night, when she cried in my arms, I took her home. We stayed together. We were completely sober, completely consenting, and completely devoted. Julian leaned in closer to Ethan's ear. You thought you were a king because a brilliant girl gave you 10 years of her youth, Julian murmured. In reality, you were just a blind fool standing on a mountain of gold, begging for brass. Ethan stumbled back, his boots dragging against the floor. No, that's impossible. She told everyone the baby was mine. I told you 3 times that the baby wasn't yours, Ethan. I spoke up from the bed, my voice ringing clear across the room. You were just too arrogant to listen. You insisted I was using a fake pregnancy to trap you. My mother finally snapped out of her shock. She looked at Julian, then at the chief of medicine bowing beside him, and finally at the sleek, black and gold Vance conglomerate seal stamped on the medical files. You're Julian Vance? My mother stammered. The CEO of Vance Architecture. Julian turned to my mother, bowing his head with flawless, respectful grace. Yes, Auntie. I apologize for not visiting you sooner. I was handling the acquisition of our new estate in the West District, the house Chloe and I will be living in after our wedding. Mrs. Davis looked at the pile of cheap baby clothes Ethan had brought, items bought off cheap online sales, and then looked at the 4 black-suited assistants standing behind Julian, holding boxes from Hermes, baby strollers, imported from Italy, and custom silk infant wear. Her face flushed with utter embarrassment. Ethan. Mrs. Davis rasped, turning her head and slapping Ethan's arm hard. You useless brat. You locked her in a car? You brought this woman here to humiliate her. Aunt Davis, Julian interrupted smoothly, his voice cold as ice. Mr. Davis locked my pregnant wife in a sealed vehicle for 4 hours, resulting in severe oxygen deprivation and a threatened miscarriage. Julian looked at his head of legal counsel standing at the door. File a formal complaint for reckless endangerment and unlawful restraint. Julian ordered. I want Mr. Davis's driver's license revoked and his firm's pending subcontracts with Vance Conglomerate cancelled immediately. Ethan's face went bloodless. His family's small logistics firm relied on Vance Conglomerate for 70% of its business. Cancel our subcontracts? Ethan shrieked, charging forward. You can't do that. Victoria. Tell him. You're his cousin. Victoria stepped back, her face twisted in fear and shame. Ethan, shut up. Cousin Julian is the head of the main branch family. My father only owns 5% of the subsidiary stock. She looked at Ethan as if he were a piece of trash she had accidentally stepped on. I told you not to mess with Chloe. Victoria spat, untangling her arm from Ethan's grip. I only came here because you promised your family had connections with Vance Group. You're a fraud. Without another word, Victoria turned on her high heels and stormed out of the room, leaving Ethan standing alone in the middle of his ruined dignity. 2 weeks later, my pregnancy had stabilized, thanks to the round-the-clock care of Julian's private medical team. I moved into Julian's penthouse in the city center, surrounded by soft lighting, fresh flowers, and a husband-to-be who treated me like a porcelain treasure. Julian never brought up my 10 years with Ethan. He never asked why I had chased another man for so long. Instead, every evening after returning from his firm, he would sit beside me on the sofa, gently rubbing my lower back, watching me sketch interior designs for our new villa. You're a genius, Chloe, Julian murmured one evening, resting his chin on my shoulder, looking at my blueprints. The natural lighting layout in the master nursery is brilliant. I smiled, leaning my head against his cheek. It's what I majored in, remember? I spent 3 years being told by Ethan's mother that interior design was just playing with curtains. Julian's eyes darkened slightly. He kissed my temple softly. Tomorrow the West District Luxury Villa Expo is holding its master contract bidding. Vance Conglomerate is the main developer. I want you to attend as our lead chief designer. I blinked, surprised. Me? The lead? You, Julian smiled, locking his fingers through mine. It's time the industry sees who the real master is. The next afternoon, the Grand Exhibition Center was packed with top corporate leaders, famous architects, and media outlets. The West District Master Villa project was a multi-billion-dollar government contract. Winning the design rights meant instant fame and fortune for any architectural firm. I wore a tailored dark navy silk maternity blazer, dark trousers, and low heels. My hair was styled in sleek waves, my skin radiant and healthy, radiating an aura of calm, professional authority. Beside me walked Julian, wearing his signature bespoke suit, his hand firmly resting against the small of my back. As we walked toward the VIP lounge, a noisy argument broke out near the registration booth. What do you mean my pass is invalid? Ethan's voice boomed across the lobby. He looked disheveled, wearing a wrinkled suit, his eyes dark with stress. Beside him stood his mother, Mrs. Davis, clutching a leather portfolio. Sir, your firm's qualification credentials were revoked by the developer 2 weeks ago, the security guard explained calmly. Please step aside. Mrs. Davis spotted me walking in with Julian. Her eyes flared with a mixture of anger, regret, and desperation. She pushed past the guard and rushed toward us. Chloe, my dear. Mrs. Davis cried, trying to grab my hand. Thank goodness you're here. Tell these guards to let us in. Ethan's firm spent 6 months preparing this design proposal. Julian stepped forward smoothly, his tall frame blocking Mrs. Davis like an iron wall. Mrs. Davis, Julian said, his voice cold as winter frost. This is a private corporate exhibition. Please maintain your dignity. Ethan marched up, his face pale and furious, glaring at me. Chloe, is this your doing? Did you tell Julian to cancel our bidding pass? I looked at Ethan with complete indifference, taking a sip of warm water from the flask Julian held for me. Your proposal was rejected because your design firm plagiarized 3 core lighting blueprints from my university portfolio 2 years ago, I said calmly, my voice projecting across the lobby where several reporters were watching. Ethan, you took my old thesis sketches from my desk when we were still friends and used them under your firm's name. The surrounding crowd gasped. Plagiarism. Isn't that Ethan Davis from Davis Logistics? He stole his ex-girlfriend's design files. Ethan's face went from pale to beet red. You gave those to me. I gave them to you to review, not to sell, I replied, pulling an iPad from my briefcase, showing the time-stamped copyright registry from the State Architectural Board. I registered those designs under my name 3 years ago. The board officially blacklisted your firm this morning. Mrs. Davis looked like she was going to faint. Plagiarized. Ethan, you told me you drew those yourself. Ethan stood frozen, his eyes wide with absolute pathetic horror. He looked at me, the woman he had mocked as not smart, the girl whose breakfast he had taken for granted, the designer whose work he had stolen, standing beside the most powerful man in the state, wearing diamonds, carrying a life he could never touch. Chloe, Ethan whimpered, taking a desperate step forward, his voice breaking into a raw, pitiful plea. Chloe, please, we grew up together, 10 years. How can you destroy my family like this? Julian raised his hand, signaling the security team. Escort Mr. Davis and his mother off the premises, Julian ordered sharply, and file a formal lawsuit for intellectual property theft. 4 heavy-set security guards immediately seized Ethan and Mrs. Davis, dragging them backward toward the glass doors as Ethan kicked and screamed my name into the cold autumn wind. I didn't turn around once. I took Julian's hand, walked into the main auditorium, and stepped up to the podium to present my master design, to a standing ovation from the entire industry. 6 months later, the winter snow fell softly over the city, painting the rooftops white. In the private suite of the City Women's Hospital, the room was filled with warm sunlight, soft classical music, and the sweet scent of baby powder. I lay on the comfortable bed, resting my head against the plush pillows. Beside my bed sat a wooden crib draped in white silk lace. Julian sat on the edge of the mattress, wearing a soft wool sweater, gently cradling our newborn daughter in his arms. The powerful, terrifying CEO who commanded billions now held a tiny, 7-pound baby girl with a look of pure, unadulterated, tearful reverence. She has your eyes, Chloe, Julian whispered, leaning down to press a deep, tender kiss against my forehead. She's perfect. I smiled, my heart overflowing with peace. What should we name her? Clara, Julian murmured softly, resting his hand over mine. Clara Vance. It means bright and clear. Just like the life you gave me. A soft knock came at the door. Julian's assistant, Mark, stepped in quietly, holding a small leather folder. Mr. Vance, Mrs. Vance. Mark spoke in low tones. The legal proceedings regarding Davis Logistics have been finalized. I looked at Mark calmly. What happened? Ethan Davis was found guilty of intellectual property theft and corporate fraud, Mark reported. His firm went bankrupt, and he was ordered to pay $2 million in damages to Vance Architecture. To cover the debt, his family had to sell their house and cars. Mark paused, taking a slight breath. Mrs. Davis suffered a severe stroke from the stress and is currently living in a state-run care facility. Ethan is working as an entry-level draftsman for a small construction company in the outer district, earning minimum wage to pay off his remaining debt. I looked at the snow falling gently outside the window. 10 years of chasing him. 10 years of being treated like a genderless shadow, a free servant, a joke among his friends. And now, he was paying back every single cent he had taken from my youth, my work, and my dignity. And Victoria? I asked softly. Miss Victoria was stripped of her family trust shares by the main Vance family board, Mark replied. She left the country last month after her engagement to a wealthy older investor fell through. Julian didn't even look at the file. He closed the folder, handed it back to Mark, and gestured for him to leave. The door clicked shut. Julian leaned down, wrapping his arm around my shoulders, pulling me and our baby close against his chest. Everything is over, my love, Julian whispered into my hair, his deep voice carrying a forever-like warmth. No more past. Only us. I closed my eyes, resting my cheek against his warm chest, listening to the steady, strong beat of his heart. I had walked through 10 years of dark, foolish rain, only to find the sun waiting for me at the end of the road. I was home.